Guru Nation, welcome to episode 156 of Random Musings from the Clinical Trials Guru. This is Dan Sfera. I'm here with our intern slash... Are you going to be part-time here?
Yes, most likely, yeah.
You are. Part-time coordinator, research assistant. You were just doing some regulatory today?
Yeah, some regulatory.
And it's very fitting that that's what you were doing, because I got a question from someone who is asking about regulatory. So, you know, we've covered it in different videos, but never by itself, I guess. Like, nothing comprehensive, right? We've discussed it, of course, but never just like, here's a video or a podcast on regulatory, right?
Okay.
So you are 1 year, just about 1 year into this industry, right?
Yeah, well, wait, but a year.
When did you start with us?
Ooh, I believe it's...
like around this time of 17, right?
Yeah, 17.
Yeah? Or was it 16? I don't know you for 2 years, do I?
I'm not sure. It was early 17, probably.
Okay, so like a year and a half.
Yeah.
Let's just say that. Okay, so you've done enough regulatory now.
A lot.
But it's not like you're an expert.
No, by no means.
So you're probably the best person to gauge. Like, you're a good barometer for assessing people's knowledge out there on regulatory. Okay, so like we'll go through all the regulatory documents from the site level. There's more at the CRO level, but I don't know if we're going to get into all of those. We'll get into whatever makes sense. So, okay, the most important regulatory document is the 1572.
Exactly.
So you've done a good amount of those?
Yeah.
Okay. And what do you think the 1572 entails, or what do you think it's for? Well, from what you've done, and I know what you've done is just file them and make sure people sign them and make sure the right names are on it. And
I mean, for me, it's the most important document in the whole binder. Other than the protocol, I mean, it kind of makes sure that the people are supposed to do what they're doing. Okay. So, you know, it's...
So it's the promise between the PI and the FDA that only they are responsible for the conduct of the study at their site.
Exactly.
So if I'm Dr. Sfera, I can delegate Jesse to be the coordinator, Monica to be the recruiter, Chris to be the regulatory guy, Chris to do the budgets. But if something happens,
we are responsible.
Only I am responsible, the PI. That's it. Because if you look at the 1572, there's only one signature on there.
Yeah, the PI.
And that's the PI's, right? So that's the most important form. Now, in box 6, so in box 1, I wish I had one in front of me, but in box 1, can we grab a reg binder? That makes it a lot easier. So now that we have a reg binder in front of us. Okay, so 1572. So you see box 1 is name and address of the PI. Okay. Box 2, and for those in the CRA Academy, you actually have these forms in front of you, but anybody can go on Google right now and just search 1572 form, and you could look at this. Okay, but students in the CRA Academy, we made slides, all this stuff for regulatory. It's a whole module. You did the CRA Academy.
Yeah, I did.
So week 2 is regulatory. Okay, so box 1, name and address of the PI. Okay, box 2 is you know, do you check that there's a CV for the PI? Okay, box 3 is any address of any facilities that are going to be doing the study. Okay, and box 4 is the labs that are going to be used. Most sites use central labs, so it's usually the lab is somewhere that's not in their state. Okay, box 5, name and address of the IRB. Again, most sites use central IRBs. Box 6 is the sub-Is. This is where it gets important. So in box 6, anyone who's in box 6, okay, automatically And usually now that requires coordinators as well. So sub-Is and coordinators. It used to not be coordinators, and for some reason sponsors have been wanting more and more coordinators added to this box. So anyone who's in box 6, it triggers other regulatory documents that need to be completed for not just the PI, but anyone in box 6. Do you know what those are?
I don't remember the top of my head.
Okay, so one is right here, CVs and license. Okay, so you need that for everyone in box 6, including the PI. Another one is the financial disclosure forms. Okay, so you need that for everyone on the 1572. So financial disclosure form, basically, each sub-I has to check whether they have financial interest, and it's usually a dollar amount. And this one, I don't know, can you see if there's any dollar amount?
It doesn't. See it.
Usually it's 50,000. Yeah, right here, $50,000 of equity interest in this sponsor. Okay, so most people check no, but you need that for every single person on the 1572. Okay, another thing you need now, and this is for people beyond just being in box 6, is the delegation of duties log. Okay, so that's over here. For this study, it's called site signature and delegation of responsibilities log, but it's basically the same thing. It's a delegation of duties log. Okay, so here, do you know what this is for? The delegation log?
That's where the PI assigns the responsibilities for everybody on the trial.
Everyone, yeah. Not just the 1572 people.
Everybody else.
Everybody.
And if there's a change of the person who's doing it, of responsibility, he has to sign the end date and start a new person with the start date. Which is
very good.
Most likely the same time the other person ended.
Yes. Very good. So, what do you do? Okay, so now we got the 1572. We got the financial disclosure forms. We have the CVs and licenses. We have the delegation of duties log. Okay. Another thing that everyone on the delegation log needs is GCP training. Everyone who's on the delegation log needs a CV as well.
Okay? Yes.
GCP, CV, and then IATA, which is shipping hazardous goods. Only the people that are going to be shipping labs. Okay. So now we can get into protocol amendments. Well, actually, before that, we get into training. Okay. So other than the delegation log, there's something called a training log. Let's see if we can find this here. Training log. Oh no, it's right here. The very last one. Is there 2 binders?
Yes, there's another one.
We'll just work with this one. So here's a training log. Okay. Anyone on the delegation log needs to have training documented. Okay, and it could be self-training, it could be the PI trained, it could be the CRA trained. At the site initiation visit, the CRA trains everyone. Okay, and after that, there's something called protocol amendments. So every study on average has about 3 to 4 amendments.
Yes.
For every study. Okay, so when you have a protocol amendment, they happen often. It's very rare that you will not have a protocol amendment. It happened to me one time on one study in like 13 years. And the sponsors were bragging about it and high-fiving each other about that. It's not the norm. The norm is you're going to have like 4 or 5 amendments.
You get them all the time. And then
right?
An amendment comes, retrain everybody.
There you go. Thank you. So how do you do that? Training log, documents again.
Yes. I've seen it sometimes where it's actually a note to file.
Okay.
It could be a note to file. Okay. Also.
I've seen that too. So as long as it's documented, that it's the staff, all the staff on the delegation log have been retrained on the new amendment. Okay.
And that's to state by who he was trained, or by who they were trained.
Another thing you have in a regulatory is IRB approval for the site. Okay. So every year that expires and the site has to reapply for approval. It's pretty simple. Have you done any of those?
No.
Okay. So it's usually like a 10-page form. You submit it to the IRB. The initial one, when you get an initial regulatory documents before you can start the study, you need to get IRB approval. The site has to get IRB approval. So the site will fill out a questionnaire from the IRB, and then the IRB will approve that site. The IRB will also needs to approve the informed consent.
Okay.
And the IRB, of course, needs to approve the protocol, or else you can't even have a study to begin with.
Exactly.
Right? So really, the first thing the IRB does is approves the protocol. Mm-hmm. Okay, so each time a protocol is amended, the IRB has to approve the amendment. Right? So you're going to get a lot of IRB documentation in these reg binders as well.
You do get a lot.
Which I'm sure you've been filing,
I've been filing
each time you come in, right?
Yeah.
Monica has you file something else each time you come in. So you've gotten pretty familiar with those things.
Yeah.
Okay,
I mean, I've seen the letters, I've seen the forms, but I've never filled one out myself.
The IRB questionnaire?
Yes, exactly.
Okay. They're pretty simple. They're about 10 pages, like I said, sometimes a little more, sometimes a little less. They try to get an idea for PI oversight and staff qualification. Because remember, the IRB is only interested in one thing, and that's patient safety.
Safety.
They don't care about anything else. They don't care about the drug. They care if it's dangerous for the patients.
They don't care if it's safe.
Right. They care if it's safe. They care if it's dangerous. But they don't care if it's going to get approved or not.
Yeah.
They don't care about that. The IRB is not in business to commercialize anything. They're just keeping patients safe. Okay, so when a protocol gets amended, you're right. It triggers a training log, a retraining for the staff, everyone on the delegation log. But it usually also triggers what?
You got me on this one.
Informed
consents.
There you go.
New informed consents.
New informed consent. So that's regulatory too. We're sticking just to regulatory here, okay? So ICF amendments. Not always, but usually. Usually if you change the protocol and the patient needs to know.
Yeah. Next visit, have them sign it.
That's right. That's right.
And then, well, at any time of the study, the patient could withdraw the consent. Anytime. Sometimes it happens during the reconsent.
And so what happens in those cases?
Well, we gotta notify the IRB and stuff, and that the patient withdrew consent, and we do early termination.
Early term, yeah. So sometimes they're not able to re-sign the new consent because they don't come in for the early term.
Yeah.
Right? They're lost to follow-up. But if they do come in for the early term, good point that you brought up, you have them sign the new amendment even if they're early terming.
Yeah.
Because you have it documented. Why? Because if auditor looks, specifically the FDA, they want to see that you have the ICF amendments get signed by the patients.
And then withdrawal. Because he came with a new protocol, and then that's going to be a
That's right. So even if it's an early term visit, the patient needs to sign a new amendment if there's been one prior, in between his former visit and his last visit. Okay. Now, if they're lost to follow-up, there's nothing you can really do.
Not much.
Right?
Send the letters, have to prove that you try to communicate with them, and then your hands are clean. But if you don't do that, you're in some trouble. You can't prove your innocence.
That's right. So we got 1572, we got CVs, financial disclosures, license, GCP training, delegation log, training log, IRB approvals, informed consents. You also have different log. There's a log for everything.
For everything.
Patient identification log. I'm sure you filled those out.
Yeah, I filled those out.
ICF log, which tracks not only which patients signed the ICFs, but how many amendments there have been and who signed those amendments.
And when you guys signed.
And when. Yep. There is also, what else do we have in this thing? Table of content.
IP description logs.
Okay. Investigational product documents. Okay.
You guys got to know when they got shipped, when the order was formed. You got to store the order forms, the shipping label, not the labels, but we get confirmations.
Yes.
And then we get another slip when the product actually arrives, and then we got to store that too.
Right. Okay.
And there's a log we fill out when we ordered, when it arrived.
Yes.
And then when we destroyed it also.
So it's IP accountability, pretty much. IP
and
accountability.
And also when we distributed the IP.
So usually studies have an IP accountability or a log or like a master log where everything that comes in gets documented. And then they also have a IP distribution log, okay? Like when IP was given to subjects. And usually those are at the subject level.
Yeah.
Like subject 1 was, this is their log. Subject 2.
I have a study that has it has the master, so when it arrived, when it was dispensed. Then we have one that's for subjects, where you got to list the different subject and when you got it, and also you got to do it individually for the subject.
Okay, so what's it called? What's the master one called? Just the master log?
Yeah, the master log.
And then the individual one is the subject.
So there's master IP log. Then there's one for subject, which includes all the subjects, and then there's one in each individual binder for each page.
Okay, yeah. Okay. So IP accountability is a big part of regulatory. Another one is SAEs, right?
Yep.
So SAEs and SUSARs. Do you know what a SAE is?
It's a severe adverse event.
Mm-hmm. And then do you know what a SUSAR is and how they're
suspected?
Suspected, unexpected, serious adverse reaction. So when a SAE happens at a site, the site fills out the initial SAE report. And then when the SAE is resolved, they fill out another one called a follow-up SAE report. Now, on those forms, the PI has to check a box, yes, no, or maybe, of is the SAE related to the study drug, in their opinion.
Yeah.
Usually they check maybe, unless they know for sure, yes or no. So that goes to the sponsor and the IRB. The IRB and sponsor then decide with the medical monitor whether this makes the SUSAR list or not. But not every SAE makes the SUSAR list. Now, in some studies they do, but in most studies, the SUSAR list does not include all SAEs that happen.
I've seen some that, mainly when I look at the SAEs, they're mainly not related, but it's very rare, but it does happen when you see they are related.
Yeah.
Maybe out of 100 I've seen, probably like 5 have been related. Let's say that the PI has to check yes, it's probably related.
And that made the SUSAR list.
Yeah.
Yeah, but the other ones didn't.
It's very rare.
The other ones didn't. Okay. So SAEs, ICF, investigation of product, IRB. Now there's correspondence too that usually goes in the reg binder, and that's all correspondence from the CRO, the sponsor, as well as the IRB.
Yeah,
right?
And you get like there's one that's called general, which when they send newsletters, you gotta put those in there too.
Okay, newsletter. That's right. Yeah. That's right. Newsletters. Like telling the sites about enrollment, which also, by the way, brings up another one, screening and enrollment log.
Okay. For correspondence, there's also monitor correspondence that we gotta separate. Monitor
correspondence, IRB correspondence, CRO sponsor correspondence. Now, the monitor correspondence is important. That is the follow-up letters. Mm-hmm. Also, the confirmation letters.
Exactly.
Which is usually when a monitor says, hey, I'm going to schedule my next visit to be on this date. This is what I need to get done. And then the follow-up letter has the action items.
Yeah.
Those are very important for sites because they should work on getting those action items resolved prior to the next monitoring visit.
Yeah.
And if you have a lot of action items just piling up, and a few monitoring visits go without the site resolving those, you can have a bad time. You could have a sponsor audit. You could, if you ever have an FDA audit, that's definitely not good.
That's not good.
But it's not going to look good in a sponsor audit either. Okay. And IRB correspondence are these questionnaires, usually. And then the CRO sponsor correspondence is miscellaneous as well as newsletters.
Yeah.
Okay. Then you get a screening and enrollment log where you list every visit, every subject, who's come in, what days, for what visit. And then you have a site visit log, which is a monitoring visit log.
Yeah.
Where the monitors sign off when they've come. I think that's it. Is there anything else in regulatory that we missed?
Let me check. Something that important? No, but...
There's also like a lab manual, but usually it's like a note to file. Yeah.
Yeah.
You also have IRB member roster.
Yeah.
On there. Site. Oh, here's one. Site needs to have a CLIA waiver or a CLIA certificate. That's regulatory as well. That's for operating a lab. Even though most sites use central labs, you still need a CLIA certificate or a CLIA waiver because you're drawing blood and processing blood on site. So you need those things. So I think we pretty much covered
pretty much everything.
Like 80%, I mean, obviously the protocol, and then there's a protocol signature page, and then each time there's an amendment, there's a protocol amendment signature page.
Has to be signed with the PI.
And then there's also this huge thing no one ever reads is the investigator brochure, which is all the information that is known about the investigational product that's got to be in there. Those almost never get amended.
No, but, I mean, it's just a pain to put them in the binder because it takes
They're
a
huge.
lot of pages and
there's a signature page for that, too.
Oh, yeah.
The PIs usually read that part.
What I've usually seen is people print out the whole brochure, 4 pages on one, double-sided, makes it so much smaller, but then the only page that's full-size is a signature page.
Oh, you've seen that happen?
I've seen that
We've done that here?
I believe it was here, yes.
Oh, that's a good idea. I've never done that, but probably Monica is smarter than me. Anything else? Is there a table of contents in this bad boy?
Yes.
What do we have on that
It's
thing?
falling off the binder, but it's still there.
And usually, this is one reg binder. Usually you need 2, sometimes 3
Yeah, there's
binder,
one
like
study that has
huge binder. 5?
3. No, 3.
Okay.
I was thinking of another one, but it's 3, but I think it should be 5 because the binder barely closes. And if I had to put something inside, I had to open it, take a big chunk out, put it to the side, now flip through it, and then put the things in. Because it's just so...
You need more space. It's like real estate.
Yep. That's one piece.
So this is the table of contents. Just going to see if we missed anything. Monitor sign-in log, enrollment log, subject ID log, IRB correspondence, IRB membership list, completed site information questionnaire. Yeah. It's probably another binder.
Protocol deviations, maybe.
Oh, yeah. Protocol deviation log. That's right. So each time you have a protocol deviation, it has to be logged on the doc. There's logs for everything. What else we got here? Site signature, delegation log, SAEs, clinical trial pregnancy form. Oh, breaking the blind. Breaking the blind. Okay, if a subject ever ends up in a SAE and it requires hospitalization, and the doctor's there at the hospital or the PI wants to determine if they took the placebo or not, there's usually a sealed envelope, and only the PI can break it and then break the blind. But then, of course, the subject's out of the study.
Yeah.
But that's no longer important. Now it's just, you know
what's
their safety.
What's funny? We're going to start a study, and I thought it was a terrible study, in my opinion, because it was a blinded study. But you could tell it was something. I mean,
you could tell, or
you could tell right away because the packaging was very different. You could see that one of them was over the counter and the other one was not. I mean, it's the packaging of the of the placebo. It was
so they tried to say it was double blind, but you can tell
it wasn't.
Yeah.
I mean, as soon as I saw the bottle, I knew what it was. I was like, that's not.
Poorly designed.
Yeah, very badly designed. Not only that, but it was very hard to find people for that study. It was very exclusive, and
that's a tough study, huh?
Yeah, it's very tough.
There's another section here, adverse event of interest. Okay, so every study may or may not have its own AEs of special interest. Doesn't mean it's a SAE, but in this case, it was liver functioning report, right? So, someone could have abnormal liver readings. It's not an SAE. They're fine. But it's an AE of interest because the sponsor knows that that's something that's a potential side effect of the drug. So in this case, they have a form for that, and they treat it pretty much like a SAE, but it's not a SAE. Okay, lab documents, CLIA waiver, like I said, lab director for the central lab. They need a central lab director.
You got to have his certifications in your binder, even though he's not here.
And here's another one that nobody ever looks at, but it needs to be in there, is the ECRF completion guidelines. So the EDC guidelines. Protocol deviations, site training, correspondence, miscellaneous, GCP, IRB membership roster, enrollment log. Yep, that's everything. We covered it all. Any other personal stories you want to share from your time doing regulatory? What do you think about regulatory?
I mean, it's definitely not the best. I mean,
I think it's so easy.
It's easy, but it's not something you want to you get too engaged on.
Yeah.
I mean, it's good. I like it. It's very easy. The thing I do like is probably the what we just talked about. The word escape.
Filing?
No. For the ECRF, the EDC.
EDC.
Yes,
okay.
It's much more straightforward. When there's something wrong with it, you already know.
Yeah.
So not like this. Like maybe when the monitor leaves, it leaves your list of things you gotta fix, and then sometimes you're like, oh wait, where did I put it? So you have to flip through the whole binder.
Yeah.
EDC, it says right away, hey, this is wrong, fix it, and then that's the only reason why I like it. It's much easier.
Well, thank you, Jesse. And most sites. Not most sites, but some big sites, which is the one I got this question from a viewer. He's been a study coordinator for years, has an interview to be a CRA, works at a huge site. I know he can do it, but at his site, he did everything except regulatory, because they have someone doing just that.
Yeah.
So he almost knows nothing about regulatory.
Regulatory is very important.
Yeah.
Definitely.
Especially as a CRA, that's like almost... the most important.
Exactly. That's the most thing you do. You do walk around the lab, but I think most of the time for the CRAs is spent in the regulatory binders.
A lot of time spent
most
there.
of it.
Yeah.
And
especially when there's amendments and trainings that triggers all that stuff.
Yes.
All right, Jesse. Well, thank you very much for your time, and thank you everyone for listening, watching, and we'll catch y'all later. Hopefully this helps.